I've been watching Amberlynn for about 6 years now. My introduction to her was the 2018 video, Come Grocery Shopping with Me. I could tell immediately this was going to be a wild, dramatic ride going forward, and boy was I right. Her YouTube career has spanned a decade, beginning with a soft-spoken girl looking to change her life through weight loss, but the facade started crumbling quickly, exposing Amberlynn's true nature, and it would only get worse over time. Amber has displayed truly disturbing behavior since her first upload, like making multiple SA accusations, the details of which have changed several times, neglecting her animals, and being varying levels of abusive to most, if not all, of her partners, just to list a few. She's also had countless numbers of allegations leveled against her by ex-partners, family members, friends, viewers, and reaction channels, some being true, some extremely plausible, and some very unlikely, but still perceived as true simply because it sounds good enough to the audience. Which brings me to my reason for wanting to make this video. But first, I want to make it abundantly clear. I do not like Amber. I don't think she's a good person. I think she has no redeeming qualities. I feel largely the same about her exes, family members, and a lot of the reaction community, with some exceptions, of course. This is mostly going to be a stream of consciousness with a tiny bit of structure, and a lot of it might sound like a defense of Amber, but also an attack on everyone else. All I can say is, I assure you, I'm not picking anyone's side. To quote the African king Mike Perry,
these hands is bisexual, motherfucker. They everything. Anybody can get it, any gender, anybody can get this shit at any given time.
in all seriousness, my reason for making this video is going to be to get out some thoughts on how the reaction channels and the girl world's attitude towards Amber has seemed to shift in the last 6-ish months, around the time of me writing this portion of my pseudo script. It was around that time that Amberlynn's ex Beck came out with the washcloth story.
Before I started wiping her, she would use washcloths to wipe. She would set them on the corner of the sink, and then she would turn herself around to wipe herself on it. And then she would throw them away. Our roommates started to notice that their late mother's washcloths were disappearing. And they confronted her about it, and she wanted me to lie to them for her, but I didn't. She ended up buying more washcloths for herself, and instead of throwing them away, she had me wash them in the sink and then put them in the washer. Wiping ended up being the lesser of two evils at the time.
The reaction to this was intense. The community and reaction channels took this allegation as the truth. No questions asked. This happened. I immediately took issue with it, though. I'm not saying that it couldn't have happened, but I think it's highly unlikely, and for a reason that the audience has pointed out for quite some time. For years, the audience and reaction channels have said that Amberlynn couldn't possibly be able to wipe herself properly because of her size, figuring she needed to use one of those poop stick things or have Beck do it. But now we're meant to believe somehow that Amber, likely at her heaviest weight of about 570-ish pounds, was placing a face cloth on the corner of a vanity, reaching far enough behind her with her extremely large arms to spread her butt cheeks, then swipe between them on a washcloth-clad vanity corner without the washcloth moving, Beck's help, or Amberlynn getting injured. I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying it. This would have been nearly physically impossible for Amber to do on her own without the help of Beck. And if Beck had helped Amber, they would have mentioned it in their story. We also need to consider the claim that Eric confronted Beck in some way about the washcloths, and Beck said they refused to defend Amberlynn. Again, I find it extremely unlikely that Eric, who has no problem sharing shit-related stories about Beck's exes online, would live peacefully with Amberlynn for any amount of time, and remain friends with her years later, after finding out that she had wiped herself with his dead mother's washcloths. In the same dirty underwear Facebook post, Beck calls himself a good liar, and they've also displayed extremely poor judgment when it comes to their partners. This is glaringly obvious after they dated and got engaged to two child predators back to back. Beck hasn't provided any actual proof for the allegations that they've made against Amberlynn, nor has Amberlynn provided any proof to confirm her own allegations or proof to invalidate Beck's. Neither one has anything to go on except their word, and we all know that's not something you can trust from either of them. That's the case with all of Amber's exes, and really anyone in her personal life. Another example would be everything that has happened with Tommy. Now, I'm not deep diving that shit show, but a lot has gone on lately. Turns out they had been in a relationship the entire time. It's shocking, I know. But during this time, Tommy was trashing Amber online on various forums, comment sections, and in DMs. This all came to a head when Tommy publicly accused Amberlynn of intentionally letting Verity out of the house so that she would be able to stay in Wisconsin longer while searching for her. This obviously didn't work. Verity is still missing and very likely dead, and Amberlynn went back to Oklahoma far too soon. Amber had a meltdown, several of them actually, on her live streams in the days following Tommy's accusations about Rarity. And this was also fueled in part by Tommy hinting at doing an interview with Mr. Snowflake. During the live streams, Amber made several accusations against Tommy, the main one being that it was actually Tommy who left the kitchen door open after an argument, resulting in Rarity escaping. I'm going to deviate slightly because I've had some thoughts about the whole Rarity thing. I'm not ruling out the possibility that Amber may have intentionally let Rarity out. We know what likely happened to Destiny's cat Gracie, so it is possible. But I think what probably happened is that one of them did accidentally leave the door open somewhere in the house. They weren't paying attention, and because they were absorbed in whatever abusive mess they had going on, neither of them noticed Rarity was gone until it was too late. And neither one of them wants to accept the possible blame. A big part of the reason why I don't think Amberlynn let Rarity out on purpose is because I don't think she would intentionally give up control of something that loved her like Rarity did. I think in her own twisted sort of way, she, I'm doing air quotes when I say this, loves her pets, but it's in the sense of, what can they do for me? How can they make me feel happy? You know, she had Rarity for almost a decade, and I don't believe she would just give up that length of control so easily. It's obviously entirely possible that I'm wrong though, so I don't know. There were also mutual accusations of physical, mental, and verbal abuse from both sides during the live streams and the Snowflake interview. I think there is truth to both sides of the story, but it is a bit hard to parse out because of the individuals we're dealing with. Amber has been accused of some form of abuse by nearly all of her partners, and if they haven't accused her directly, someone close to them has. So I believe Amber may very well have scratched Tommy's arms and displayed disturbing abusive behavior towards her. And Tommy is fucking Tommy, an obsessive lunatic feeder who seems to have a tremendous amount of her own baggage, who has already helped fast track the death of one super morbidly obese partner, was speaking to other women and trashing Amber during their entire relationship, and is already poaching at least one other hospital bedbound super morbidly obese person. So take that for what you will. And most recently, we have Aunt Tammy. This fucking wackadoodle decided to reach out to Tommy in the midst of the fallout between her and Amberlynn. She wants Tommy to leave her niece alone, but then, almost in the same breath, starts talking about spilling the tea to reaction channels. It's just constant comments and posts saying, oh, the things I could share, the lies I could expose if I wanted to. Then fucking do it, Tammy. We already know Amberlynn has lied about several aspects of your relationship, has dragged your family through the mud, as you like to say. So, show your receipts. Instead of calling into your niece's live stream and saying vile shit like this about a literal child at the time.
And you didn't meet me at 17. You met me when you were 14, when I went to California for the first time after 16 years. Remember you getting the pot of spaghetti out of the refrigerator and using the really huge utensil, taking big scoops out of the pot onto your plate, where your fucking dad said, "I think that's enough, Amber." That's my first memory of you, and you still continue to pile on your plate. Yeah, that story goes around our family year after year after year. So anyway, that's the first time I met your ass.
Put on your big girl pants and show your proof. But I doubt she ever truly will. Because, like every single person involved in Amber's life, Amber included, they're all lying grifters, desperate for attention and financial gain, clinging to the hope that somehow they'll be perceived as the better person. And more often than not, the community sides with the equally awful option because Amber is so disliked. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve hate, she is a terrible person, but so are all of these other people involved. And I wish the community and reaction channels would maintain a degree of neutrality with all this instead of unquestionably siding with other known liars. I used to really enjoy some of these channels. The detail and care that went into videos from people like Salty Crab or Snowflake was genuinely entertaining, and some of their theories were quite thought-provoking. At least as much as they could be when it came to some random fat woman in Oklahoma. I suppose my final thought is that I would just like for people to take a step back and just pause for a moment before throwing all of their eggs into any of these lunatics' baskets. Obviously, we're all going to form opinions, but perhaps they don't have to be so drastically one-sided. Hope you enjoyed my autistic rambling about terrible people. Oh well, if you didn't. Okay, love you, bye.